Now, the National Prosecuting Authority believes it has a watertight case against Umkhonto Wesizwe Party member of Parliament, Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla. Zuma-Sambudla appeared in the Durban Magistrate's Court on Thursday. That's after handing herself over to police in relation to charges leveled against her for posts that she shared during the July unrest in 2021. For more on this, we're joined by forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan. Paul, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it this Saturday morning. Let's get your sense of whether there's any legal case that is airtight here. The words ultimately used by Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla is, "We see you, Amandla." And then, of course, free Jacob Zuma, with images, of course, of all the violence that it was happening. How tight is the government's case here?
Well, I don't really want to say it's tight or it's not tight, but I'm satisfied when we opened the case back in July 2021. We were satisfied at that stage that the way in which the tweets were sent out, in fact, they accompanied videos of people, for example, shooting guns, burning trucks, burning buildings, looting. In a few of the instances, there were pictures of people lying on the floor. I'm not sure if they were deceased or what, but we do know that 350 people died during that tragic event of a few days. And one has to look at the balance. Saying "we see you" can be contrasted with her other messages where she sent to, she said, "Mpumalanga, we can't see you." And I'm thinking the logical explanation for that is that in Mpumalanga there was no violence going on. And then she said, "Gauteng, we can't see you." So I think that you have to not look at just one tweet, you have to look at the whole situation as a whole. All of the tweets together over that period of several days. And I think it's common cause that she sent the tweets. And we've been able to forensically prove that it was her that sent the tweets. So at the end of the day, I think it's up to the prosecution to present their case. And I've seen the charge sheet, and I think the charge sheet is well put together. And then it will be up to a learned judge to sit and listen to the prosecution's case and to her defense, and then to make a decision whether she's guilty or not guilty.
What about, is there any chance where one looks at this then and says, okay, if we're going to look holistically at not just one set of tweets or posts on X that Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla had put forward, if we're going to look at more than just one tweet, then why are we not able to look at more than just her tweets and look at other people? That we'd need a further forensic investigation across the board on social media in South Africa at the time, on any and all of those who may have incited violence. Would that then not be also fair as an assumption to then be making, that she should not be the martyr for everybody else as well, if there are any who have followed through on similar kinds of sentiment?
Well, you see, at the end of the day, we have a country where resources are limited, especially when it comes to the criminal justice system. And if you go after everybody involved, you're going to have a trial with thousands of people. So what do? You go after the ringleaders. You know, obviously I'm not likening this to what happened in Germany between 1939 and 1945. But at the end of the war, they didn't execute every German. They executed the leaders. They put them on trial first, and then somewhere in the region of 100 or so of them were executed. Now, if they had to try every single German, how long would that have? We'd still be dealing with that now. Well, we wouldn't, because most of them have passed along. But the reality of the situation is that the lady in question, which we can now refer to her as the accused has 100,000 followers on her public account. Now, if you've got 100,000 followers, you are what's commonly known as an opinion leader. Now, an opinion leader has a duty of care and a responsibility, because if a person has 10 followers and they tweet something, you know, the depth of that is questionable. But if you've got 100,000 followers, and bearing in mind, when we downloaded her account, we recorded also how many of the tweets she sent out have been retweeted. And it runs into hundreds of thousands. So you've got all these people engaging in this activity and then looking at these tweets and essentially being egged on and saying, look, we see you. She could have just as well said, well done. It's the effect of the words, and we don't want to go into the semantics, because I'm sure her defense counsel will be doing just that. We see you. At the end of the day, it's not just we see you, it's the whole thing holistically. The big picture is that she was complimenting by saying, we see you, the people that were engaged in violence, and she was saying to those that weren't engaged in violence, we can't see you, we don't see you. So I think at the end of the day, a learned judge will have to listen to all the argument for and against, and make a decision. I certainly am satisfied that the state have made the right decision, and that the NPA and the people involved in this case have made the right decision.
Look, Paul, I fully take on your point regarding particularly the 100,000 followers. I'm not sure if it necessarily makes that person a thought leader. I mean, for one, I have 114,000 followers as well on the platform X. I'm not sure that necessarily makes me an opinion or thought leader myself. But nonetheless, with that being said, does that still not make her ultimately a martyr for everybody else who perhaps would have incited? I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just asking the question. If she was to have to endure any kind of sentencing, whether it be a fine, whether it be jail time, etc., for this, would that not make her a martyr when there were so many others perhaps who were inciting the same violence?
Well, don't forget, quite a few people have been arrested and charged, and some of them sent to prison. They've been convicted already. So she's not on her own. The thing is, she didn't get her hands dirty, which is also what happened during most of these situations. The ringleaders are not on the ground getting their hands dirty. She'll have her opportunity in a court of law to explain what she did and why she did it. And this common phrase of "we see you," and then where there's no violence going on, "we can't see you," that's her trouble. And that's what she'll have to explain. Whether she's a martyr or not, or whether she considers herself a martyr, that's another line of thought altogether. But I don't believe any person can say, "Oh, I'm not going to prosecute you because that'll make you a martyr." 350-ish, I can't remember the exact number, I think it was 350 or 354 people died over that week. And in my opinion, the families of those people are probably looking for justice as well. And I think they should be allowed to have their justice.
What about the freedom of speech argument here? Because ultimately, you're allowed freedom of speech in South Africa. Despite some countries where that may not necessarily be possible, you are allowed to raise your concerns, to raise your fears, to raise issues that you certainly have. What if you certainly agree with at the time, what she felt perhaps was the wrongful arrest of her father?
Well, freedom of speech has to be contrasted with the reality of the situation, which is that the Constitution says freedom of speech shall not be used to incite hatred or to incite violence. And I'm sorry, but looking at her tweets, she absolutely incites hatred. She incites racial divisions and she incites violence. That's the way I see it. I may be seeing it wrong. But, you know, at the end of the day, it has to be dealt with in a court of law. And, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm actually just been trying to actually go right into her account as well right now, if I may. And I know that she recently had posted as well that she was speaking about some other people and had said that she sees them too very recently as well. So very interesting to see how this works out. And
Well, it's
she
very
pointed...
easy to cover your tracks afterwards.
Yeah,
by
of course.
adding tweets that says, we see you, we see you there, we see you here. Because we're not really interested in what she's tweeting now, because that will be used as part of her defense to say, look here, there's tweets I've seen where I'm saying to people, we see you. But you know, we're interested in what happened at that moment in time, not what's happening now, almost 4 years later. So she'll have to explain what her tweets were at that moment in time. And it's very easy to write things now to say, oh, actually, this is what I really meant.
Yeah, and you know, there's a picture images and videos that were then posted by Zwelinzima Vavi, who of course we know then just 23 hours ago, 15 hours later, she then wrote there, we see you as well, hashtag Gwaza Umkhonto, Gwaza. You know, very interesting to kind of note what the courts will perhaps make of all of that then. Thank you so much for the time, though, Paul.
It's post factum. It's all post factum. So the court will be entitled to disregard what she's doing now after being charged.
Well, it's also the court of public opinion that certainly matters to her perhaps as well, and to everybody in a situation like this, one would imagine. So, yeah, we'll certainly see what comes to bear here. Paul, appreciate the time, though. Thank you for giving us the other perspective as well to all of this, of course, as I try to balance out this conversation. There's so many sides to it that it needs to be made clear. And, of course, we haven't got a final ruling with regards to this. Warning ultimately, and later on she will then still be going back to court.